Today we'll be talking the pros and cons of the DJI Mini SE2, and we'll be talking about, is it worth picking up in 2024? Let's get into it. This drone is literally so small that I smuggled it into Jordan in a sock. Recently, I went traveling to Jordan, and pre-trip, I found out that you couldn't bring drones into their country, otherwise they confiscate it. So naturally, what I did for a lower risk is my Air 2S is quite expensive. So I went into Best Buy, I found the cheapest drone that money could buy, and that was the Mini SE2 for $299 US. So the quick story is that I took this mini drone, I hid it in a sock, and I put it in my check-in luggage. It landed in Jordan and they actually flagged it, so I thought for sure the drone was a goner. They then pulled me into the back security room, checked out all my electronics and cameras, anything I had in that bag, and he was literally holding the sock that this mini drone was inside, but he didn't look inside the actual sock. And after like a 10-minute interrogation, he let me go. So luckily, I have footage for you guys today. So what I've done in the description below, you can find two different types of footage. The drone footage I got with this guy here, the Mini, and then I also had a Air 2S that one of the camp leaders had already in the country. So we'll compare the two a little bit as this video goes on. Also, I've linked my preset. It's just a photo preset. It's completely free right now. If you want to just click that link and go download it. Oh, and while you're down there, it'd be really nice if you could just leave a like. It goes a really long way in helping my channel get noticed. Let's dive back in. All right, so let's dive into the pros and cons of this drone. And now that I'm back in Canada, I have two drones. So it's a love-hate relationship. Like, this is such a cool, just easy, portable drone that I can bring around with me, but at the same time, it's like I already have the Air 2S, so do I sell this one? So let's start first with the pros of this drone, and what really came in handy when I was traveling, because we only had one battery, was the ability to just charge it with a portable power bank via USB-C. So it was really amazing. The charge times were pretty quick, and then we got like 25 to 30 minutes of flight time, quickly put it back in the portable power bank, let it charge as we were going to the next spot, and we constantly had juice while we were traveling. We already talked about price, but that's a huge pro as well. For $299 US for the basic package, it's actually like a really good deal, and it's a great upgrade path for beginners. Also, this drone is just so tiny. We talked about that too. You could hide it in a sock and sneak it into countries, so I guess that's a pro for it as well. The next pro is that this drone is sub 250 grams. So in Canada anyways, it's a lot more chill on the drone laws. You don't even need to go online and get a license for it to be able to fly it. And then I don't know about your country, you'll have to check the regulations for that, but it's just like it flies, if you will, under the radar a little bit better. We already touched on this a little bit, but this drone, the controller for it anyways, is the exact same as my Air 2S. So the upgrade path, if say you're a beginner and in 2 years you're like, actually I want better footage, you'll already know how to fly some of the more advanced drones. A common question I get asked with this drone is like, can I use it professionally? And the short answer is yes, of course. Oftentimes, if you're good enough at like color grading or you're shooting in proper lighting conditions for this drone, because it's not great in low light, you're definitely gonna get away with it. And if you're just shooting wedding films like my friend uses it for, you're totally gonna be fine for that. With regards to specs, you get up to 2.7K, so it isn't 4K, but it's close, and 30 frames per second if you want to slow that down on a 24-second timeline. The last pro I'll talk about is that ND filters are available for this drone, which is really helpful in getting that proper motion blur when you're shooting video. So I highly recommend doing that. Unfortunately, we didn't know if everything was going to get confiscated, plus we didn't have time to get ND filters for it, but yeah, highly recommend getting some, and it's nice that they are available. Okay, so unfortunately, there are some cons to this drone. What are they? We talked about this drone being amazing for beginners. However, there's one giant pitfall with that. There are no obstacle avoidance sensors on this drone, so you just have to be like super careful with it. I guess the good thing is it's cheap, so if you crash it, it's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg. You also can get DJI Refresh or DJI Care on it, just in case of accidents, and then it's a whole lot cheaper to replace. The next two cons that we'll talk about is in the feature set. So there's no hyperlapse mode on this drone, and I know a lot of people do get excited about this feature, and I have used it before. It's really easy and intuitive. It does all the work within the drone, so the file just spits out and you have like this sweet hyperlapse that you can just drag and drop into a timeline without doing much to it. And the second one I wanted to talk about was like the 4K footage. So if you get the composition right in camera, I mean, 4K footage isn't an absolute must. The fact that it's 2.7 is actually pretty good. But if you are going to be like cropping into your image or using like Ken Burns at all to like slowly zoom in or pan into your video, you do want 4K a little bit more. So far, the cons that we just talked about aren't a deal breaker for me, and I definitely buy this drone. However, this next con is a big one, so hang tight. So if you look here, the sensor size on this drone is actually quite small. Not a terrible thing, it's a compromise, but on my Air 2S, it's bigger and thus better in low light. Also, you're gonna get better detail on the Air 2S in the highlights and in the shadows, and you're also gonna get something called 10-bit color, which allows you to color grade and put like your own unique look on your footage a whole lot easier. This drone is not only 8-bit color as opposed to 10-bit, but it's also SDR instead of HDR footage, meaning it's just, you're not going to get the details in the shadows and highlights in terms of quality like you would on the Air 2S. An example of that is shooting at sunrise or sunset, which for me, I'm traveling a lot and that's like the best time of day for me to shoot. So it was unfortunate to see some of that footage just get a little bit noisy and muddy at times, so I wasn't super stoked on that. The next con is actually going back to the Pro, which is the size of it. So I put it up in Greece on Santorini Island, and it was super windy that morning, so much so that I just lifted the drone up and it was probably 20 meters behind me in a matter of seconds. And just emergency landed the drone. This is where it ended up, in this place. We live way over here. I just had an emergency landing with the Mini 2. I'm used to a bigger drone and it's pretty high winds right now. We're cliffside. So the wind had just completely taken it, and I've never experienced this before on my Air 2S because it's like bulkier, heavier, it just kind of hovers better. The last big con I want to talk about is like the gimbal issues. They're kind of known on this specific model, and for me, when I was flying it in Jordan, I found that it was only an issue in sport mode, so it wouldn't stay on that level plane. What would happen is as soon as I like ripped forward in sport mode, the gimbal would just like tilt down really fast. So I tried to calibrate it. Some people online have said they've had the same issues, but they said potentially it could be due to you like getting stuff like in this area, so like dirt and sand, I guess, if I was in the desert. Don't really know. I did it from like straight out of the box, but I'm gonna have to look more into that issue, and comment below if you've ever experienced this because I'd like it fixed. All right, should you pick up the Mini 2 SE in 2024? The answer for me is a resounding yes if it's your first drone ever. However, for me, I've been flying for 6 years, and to me, I need the detail in the highlights and shadows, better low light performance, less noisy and grainy. So that's why I'm gonna be keeping my Mavic Air 2S. However, that does not mean that your first drone ever needs to be something with a bigger sensor size and you need to spend all that money, because this thing is the perfect beginner drone and also a really good upgrade path for anyone who thinks like down the road they're gonna, like in 5 years, they're gonna be droning still. It's the perfect one to start with. Just be super careful with that lack of obstacle avoidance. I have links in the description below for all the products that I use and these two drones, and that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for stopping by. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for that, and we'll see you in the next one. Matty out. Peace.